Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to Counselor's Couch 101. My name is Jim Stump, and if you ever forget my name, just look up on the wall. You'll see a tree stump. Might help you remember. I'm wondering if any of you out there have ever heard or know of or read stories about the sin eaters. Sin eaters. Now, this is a real activity back in the Dark Ages, right? Back when the Catholic Church was in charge of everybody's understanding of spirituality and holiness and how to get to heaven and the way you should behave in life and, whether or not you're pleasing God. It's all that sort of thing. Dark Ages when a lot of people held onto superstitions and believed in mystical sorts of things going on. The idea was that if you had sins on your soul, you couldn't get to heaven. So some way or another, you had to get rid of the sins on your soul. Now, the Catholic Church back in the day, they had a thing they called indulgences, right? What that meant was if you gave a certain amount of money to the church, the priest there would grant you an indulgence. And in essence, that indulgence would wipe away some of the sin on your soul. And if you gave enough, people used to say you could buy your way into heaven. I'm not sure that that's really the truth of it, but that was something that they thought would work for them if they had something on their heart and their soul that was troubling them and they want to expiate it, right? So they pay for an indulgence. But other people, they were poor and they had other ways of going about this. They believed that if someone were to take on the sins of a person who is passing away, then that person can get to heaven, right? And the whole idea was in order to get someone to do that, to take on someone else's sins, they had to offer them something in return, right? That's something a lot of young people don't understand today. In order to get something of value, you have to give something of value. And oftentimes that's our labor, it's our intelligence, it's our work that we provide someone else. It is valuable and they provide us with a paycheck. But back in the day, right, what could you do to convince someone to eat your sins so that you wouldn't have to take them with you into the afterlife and maybe not get into heaven? Well, they would usually offer a large coin, in other words, a lot of money for the time, right? They would say to someone, I will give you this amount of money if you will eat the sins of my father who's passing away, something of that sort, right? And how it was done, is particularly if someone had already passed away, they would put him in a coffin, usually a box of some sort, and it'd be in the house because that's the way things were done. And the person who was seeking the sin eater would put a plate of food on top of the coffin, right? And the food was a symbol of the sins that the person in the coffin had committed in life, right? And so if the person coming in would eat the food on the plate, they would get that nourishment because a lot of people were hungry back in those days. And they would also get the money, the gold coin, or whatever was being offered. And so for those reasons, people would do it in order to have a meal, in order to have some money to get through the next week or so. But they're taking a chance, right? They're taking a chance if they load up on all these sins that they may not get to heaven. And I don't think any of us wanted to go to hell as the way it's been described by Dante and others. Don't want to go down the pits of fire for eternity. That's a heavy burden if it is indeed true. It'd be a horrible thing to want to experience. So, and one time there's a story told, a Gothic tale, that this sort of an arrangement was made. A very older man had passed away, and his wife of many, many years wanted to have someone take his sins away. So she offered a large gold coin to anyone who would come in and eat the food on the plate and take away the older man's sins. And so the young boy was starving. He was thinking that he wasn't going to last much longer if he didn't get some food and he didn't get some sustenance in the world. So he agreed to go in and eat the plate of food to take the man's sins away from him. But he was afraid if he took on those sins, he was going to die and go to hell and suffer all that torment. So he said, before I do this, I want to know something about the person who's in the box there. And he asked, this is a boy about 12 years old. He asked the lady, he said, who was in the box, right? And she said, well, that's my husband. We've been married a very long time. And the boy begins to eat the food on the plate. And he says to the woman, boy says to the woman, was he a good man? And she said, yes, he was a very good man. And the boy said, what did he do? And the woman said, well, he took care of me and our children. He raised them all up to adults. He worked very hard. He provided all the basic necessities that we needed during a time when there was a lot of want, there was a lot of famine, there was a lot of starvation in the world. And he did that for us. He put us all on the line to protect us and to provide for us, right? And the boy said, well, that's not a bad thing. He said, this man must be a good man. He couldn't possibly have very many sins to worry about. So he finished eating the food on the plate. And as he was picking up the coin, he asked the lady, well, what did your husband do all that time to take care of you and the family? And she told the boy, he was a sin eater. The boy had taken on all the sins of the sin eater who had taken on all the sins of all the people that he provided service for in order to provide for his own family. So the whole idea is, and if there's a moral to this story at all, it's that we have to pass this stuff off. We have to get rid of our sins, right? Not only to be rewarded in the next life, if that is indeed the way it truly goes, but to feel good about who we are in this life, to not carry the weight of the things we've done that have harmed other people and we feel very, very badly for. We want to get rid of that. We need a modern day sin eater. Now, there are some churches, I'm thinking of Catholics for one, they have a thing called confession. That's where they drop off their sins and they get their soul cleansed. It's wiped clean again so they don't have to carry the emotional weight, the depression, the worry about the bad things they've done. They can drop them off, right? In a way, it was a type of sin eating. Not exactly the same, but very, very similar. But a lot of folks don't do that. They don't believe in confessions. They don't look for that kind of service or practice any sort of such religious belief, right? So where do they drop off their sins? Oftentimes they do it in counseling sessions. That's where it happens. They unburden themselves by sharing all of the bad things that they've done, things that they believe have hurt other people very, very deeply. I remember attending an AA meeting once. No, I'm not a member of AA, but I used to attend them to learn and to experience what people went through when they're trying to recover from addictions, right? And I attended a meeting once. This one gentleman, he stood up and he said that he had cost family members, I think he said 14 houses, right? What he would do is he'd go to a family member, he would talk them into taking out a loan against their home, against their property, and giving the money to him, and he was going to either invest it for them or do something, some way they were going to get a return on it. And of course, there was no return. He just spent the money on his addiction and his pleasures and like that, and never returned the money. And the people lost their houses. He said he had done this many times. I thought he said the number 14. And I'm thinking to myself, what a burden that would be to carry around, that you cost your relatives 14 homes, and how much that burden placed on him from that behavior that you did to them, right? How would you ever get rid of that? The feeling you might have against it. And I would think that would cause people to continue their addictions because they must feel badly about themselves and their behavior. But part of the way you get rid of it is to talk about it, to admit it to other people, right? And so almost like saying, mea culpa, mea culpa. It's my fault. It's my fault. I did it. And admit it in a public place. And that's sort of what happened in those meetings oftentimes, right? People would stand up and they admit the bad things they did. And it was like rather, hopefully, cathartic. You start to release the pain of it, the release of carrying around what you did, right? Trying to get rid of that in order to heal and then make restitution, to go back and fix all that stuff that you did that harmed other people. So, sin eating. Um, Sin eaters can be friends, right? If someone wants to share their darkest behaviors and activities of the past with you, and you are willing to let that person talk, it's not that you have to do anything. You don't have to provide advice or tell them exactly how to get rid of that. All you need to do is listen so they can unburden themselves, right? And at that point, when they can face what they've done, hopefully they can make restitution. They can start to fix things. And a lot of times it's not about money or physical properties or anything like that. It's emotional. People hurt other people emotionally, and they need to go, or they want to go and fix that broken relationship they had with other people. And to begin that process, they have to admit what they've done. They have to face it. They have to be open and honest about their bad behavior. Sin eating. They don't give us large gold coins anymore, right? But they do give us the honor and the good feeling of being able to help other people. If someone needs to unburden and you can be their listener, and it's not going to harm you necessarily, and you can provide that service, do it. You're helping them, and who knows, the process might help you grow. You might see things in yourself that you would like to repair, fix, or amend, something of that sort. Sin eaters, we can all do it. Just saying. Thank you for stopping by. I look forward to talking with you next time.